and using Pygame. Can you kind of introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm DaFluffyPotato. I'm mostly known for my works with Pygame. I've made two games, both of which, well, I've sold two games, both of which are on Steam. Um, yeah, my YouTube channel's half tutorials, okay, not half tutorials, like one third tutorials, one third devlogs, and one third other random stuff. Uh, and that's where I get the majority of my following from. But
Nice.
yeah, I've been in game dev for 7 years with Python.
Wow, that's a long time, dude. And you're not like a 40-year-old man. You're pretty young, so that's
Yeah,
pretty
19.
early. You got started. That's
Yeah, I started at 12 out of boredom because my parents put a 30-minute time limit on how long I could play video games per day. So I figured if I could make my own games, uh, that wouldn't apply.
that's pretty cool. So she didn't. Did she ever end up enforcing it on your own games, or no? She was just like, wow, she thinks it's cool.
They almost enforced it on just programming in general because I thought I was spending too much time on the computer with programming. Even it wasn't because I was making games; it was just because I was spending a lot of time programming. Um, Although even then, it wasn't that much. It was a couple hours a day at most, but they weren't a fan of that at first.
No, I've been there too. When I was a kid, I wasn't programming. I wasn't doing anything like really useful. I was just playing games, but I would play games for. I think this is just the new age of people. We played games for 10 hours a day when we were teenagers, instead of going outside. And I don't know what else they want us to do. But
Well, I wasn't allowed to do that until I was like, I don't know, 16, 17, so just a couple of years ago.
oh wow. And so, how did you like get started programming? Was YouTube around when you started?
Uh, well, I mean, it was around. I funny story. I chose Python because it was the only programming language I knew. That I had heard of, and I had heard of it because it's just my brother randomly, passively mentioned it, and it's just the only one I knew. So when I wanted to learn to program, I just Googled Python, downloaded the interpreter, and then I looked up some tutorials. I don't think there were very many YouTube tutorials. I ended up using the ebook Inventing Games with Python. And after that, like for Pygame, I actually didn't use that tutorial I was using originally because it covered Pygame, but I stopped after I got to that point. So for Pygame, I learned it from looking at other people's code. And then I also learned it from uh, what was it? Documentation. But it was a very slow process because I didn't really know what I was doing.
No, definitely. But I feel like that's the way to learn best. Honestly, is just like you might struggle the most, but that's when stuff really sticks. It's pretty cool that you did that like so young. I wish. I mean, I can only wish, but I wish I got started with that with programming earlier. When I was a kid, I was just under that mentality where I'm like, I'll never learn it. It's too hard for me. But coming back as an adult, programming is pretty straightforward and just logical thinking. If you can solve like a logic puzzle, it seems like you could do it. You could do anything programming. I mean, basic fundamentals.
Yeah.
So, but the Pygame library has been around for 7 years. Did it? Do you know?
No, it's been around for 20 years.
Oh wow, I didn't even know Python was that old. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's an old library, and it's got the nasty reputation just because it's used in educational purpose. Well, for educational purposes so often. It's really just a wrapper for SDL, and Pygame 2 is a wrapper for SDL 2. So it's not that slow because of Python. It's just slow because of it renders using the CPU.
Oh,
So
I
a lot
see.
of people think it's slow, and it's really not that slow. You can't. The one thing that does cause issues is multiple really high resolution images. But if you're doing pixel art stuff like I do, it's not really an issue.
So it doesn't even support any 3D.
Uh, I mean, I've made some 3D stuff from the ground up, drawing lines and whatnot, but not natively. No. I'm not sure. with Pygame 2, since it's using SDL2, it's using a lot more of the functionality that comes with SDL2, including there's like multiple ways to render stuff in SDL, I think. And the second one uses a GPU more than the CPU, which is being implemented with Pygame 2. But the documentation isn't there for that yet, even though the functionality is.
So you would have to hack your way through it, kind of testing whatever you can, or
yeah, I've messed around with it a bit, but it's pretty fast. What was it, 90,000 sprites or something? I don't remember, but I got some pretty good results with it.
That's awesome, dude. So when did you, I guess, complete your first game?
Do you mean like just something playable or something that I released?
No, I don't. I mean, I guess we'll get to release first, but like after you started learning, by what point did you like complete your own first game, not just like a tutorial or not just following the lead?
Well, I mean, the very first thing I made that I would even call a game was not like I said, I wasn't really following tutorials. I don't remember what exactly I was doing. I think I was, like I said, mostly looking at people's code. And so like the first thing I made was my own thing, I think.
Yeah.
It was, okay. I think it was essentially a Gario, except, you don't get bigger. Wait, sorry, no, it wasn't that you don't get bigger. It's that you don't, like there's not multiple people. You just eat a bunch of small dots. And that was in 2013, so before Gario existed, I think.
So you invented those games where you just eat and grow. That's pretty. Those are fun games.
But yeah, that was the first one. The first one I released was a Super Smash Bros. Knockoff that I can't remember if I released it December 2013 or it was like January 2014, something like that. But that's not available anymore. People can't get that. I think I might have some files up for some games that I released in 2015, and I think that's about as far back as you can go.
Right, I saw on your YouTube you used to have a different name. Is that the reason you got rid of those games, or just separate reasons?
It was more so that I just never posted it again, and I don't really care to at this point. I had it on a website. I took down that website to make a new one, and the new one is still up, I think. But that's not my current one either. I've had like 4 websites in the past.
Yeah, I know. I feel you, dude.
But yeah, I just pretty much never put it back on the internet. I might show it for a YouTube video at some point. But the code's messy. When I started, I didn't even really know what lists were, which is funny. Well, I knew what they were. I just didn't understand the use of them. And then I noticed later on, I'm like, oh, wow, that makes sense.
So what, you just had
to do a whole lot more.
Like groups of variables?
What were you saying?
You just had a ton of variables just like lined up?
Yeah. I still see people doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
but,
it's
once I figured out what it was for, it clicked pretty much immediately.
Yeah, dude, lists, I feel like the concept of lists, even if you understand what they're for, it takes time to like really recognize when you would use it, as opposed, like once you see yourself making 5 or 6 game objects or 5 or 6 anything, variables in a row, it's like, all right, maybe I can organize this a little bit better, have some kind of iteration.
Yeah. So, I think I might get a little bit excessive with that at this point, because I really don't like seeing multiple variables for things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I'd like to like cramp my code into the smallest space possible, and I feel like sometimes that's actually a detriment.
Sorry, my internet's going in and out. I don't.
You're okay. I can hear you. Can you still
said something, and like it went out for like a second and a half. I just saw my connection go to like nothing.
Oh, you're good. So what I was saying is sometimes I like to scrunch my code up so small to the point where it's actually like harder for me to read. I know it's kind of like counterproductive, but I think there's a good balance in there somewhere.
Yeah. I got into list comprehension with Python like a year ago, I don't know, and I have a tendency to write one-liners using it for fairly complex logic, because I like how it takes up just horizontal space. So I have that one line, I know what it does, and it doesn't take up much vertical space. I can scroll past it pretty easily, but it's hard for other people to read.
No, I'm sure, and it's just like, especially if it's some kind of complicated line, but it's much better. I feel like just not my finger is thanking me for not having to scroll down like 80 lines, and you can just like put it in like 5 lines. It's so much better.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason I also use Python over other languages.
Oh, it's like the automation.
It's just so much less code.
Yeah.
Especially with the way it handles lists and dictionaries. And it's got things like the negative indexing, which is super useful. So you don't have to go like use the length of the list every time. You can just type in a negative. And then there's all the splicing stuff, which is super nice. You don't really, well, it exists in other languages, but the syntax is usually it's a function or something of the list. Like that's what they do for JavaScript, I think. Unless there's something I'm unaware of that already does that.
And C# has like a
splice method,
a link library where it's like a bunch of functions that you have to like remember, and then remember like what to put in there as like the parameters as well. It's like it is much more complicated, but I feel like Python is easy for you because you've learned it so much. I mean, it is pretty straightforward as like everything is the naming conventions that they use are not like ridiculous like MBS or whatever, some baloney, dude.
Well, actually, funny enough, when I started, I don't know why, but I was concerned the print function might use a printer.
Okay. Don't print anything naughty in the print line, dude.
And then I figured out what they actually did.
Yeah, just very, very simple. So, have you ever? So you use Pygame a lot, but have you ever used? I saw you use Godot on your YouTube.
Yeah, I've used Godot. I've tried Unity. I've tried Unreal. Although I've used far more Godot than anything else, and then I've used far more Unity than Unreal. But I've tried all three.
And so, what was your goal? I mean, besides just like learning something new, did you have a specific project in mind?
Well, for the Godot stuff, I had actually messed around with it a little bit in the past, and then I decided to participate in the game jam with it to force myself to learn it in a reasonable amount of time. And I actually have that whole thing. Well, it's in a time lapse, so you can actually watch me clicking through documentation and stuff and learning about how Godot works.
Right, the 48-hour video, but it's like it is fast, but still, I can't imagine my hard drive would be so full by the end of that, dude.
I think it was it like I have some screenshots in my Discord of how big. Actually, no, I think I might have put it on Twitter as well. I have like some screenshots of how big it was. I think it was like 10 gigabytes or something. I don't know.
Oh, that's not that
tens
bad.
of thousands of screenshots. But the software I use takes screenshots over time instead of making one recording. It makes it easier to process. I just throw it together into a MP4 using FFmpeg.
Yeah, so you're all Python all the time. So yeah, what happened? Like I was using Blender, and then one way to export it is through a bunch of like screenshots like that. And I was looking at how to do that, and I didn't want to do it in Adobe Premiere, just dragging these. There must be a simpler way. So then I looked it up, and FFmpeg is literally instant. It's amazing. Oh man, I feel like Python is a godsend. It's amazing.
Well, but Python doesn't have much to do with FFmpeg, although people use FFmpeg with Python. Like they'll script FFmpeg with Python, but
yeah, that's where I found a YouTube tutorial. I didn't know there was like an actual like a program called FFmpeg. I thought it was just like a library inside of Python.
There might be a library. There probably is. I have the executable where you send it commands and stuff, and I have scripted it with Python, but I haven't used a library with Python. But there might be a library for that, and there probably is actually.
So no, sorry, I was just gonna keep going, but you have something. I was wondering, like, do you where do you sell your games, on itch or?
So itch.io at least was my preference. you can set your own cut, and then they send the money to PayPal and whatnot. And then there's Steam, and I'm under an NDA, so I'm technically not allowed to say what the cut is.
Right.
But you can Google it, and it's not great. A lot of developers state what the cut is, and you're really not supposed to do that. Yeah, itch.io was my preference, but now, well, with itch.io, I was giving 10% to itch.io, and then PayPal was taking 12% because of fees. And I was looking at that. And I was actually just kind of starting to look into cryptocurrency like a month ago or something, and I found out that if I sell my games in cryptocurrency, I can get, what is it? I think 1% in fees after I've converted it into USD and I've got it in my bank account. It's crazy.
Yeah, and potentially you're investing too. I mean,
well, you can convert it straight into USD. I think there are some services that'll do it for you immediately, but you're paying a little bit more in fees. But if you do it manually, I think it's like 1 to 2% in fees compared to 22% that I'm paying on itch.io. Yeah. I've lost well over $1,000 to fees. So my preference in the future is probably going to be buy my games directly from me with cryptocurrency, and I'm working on something for that right now. Technically, the page is up and it's functional, but it's not. I've linked it in my Discord before, but it's not publicly visible on my website.
So you like host it on your own website and
yeah,
just kind of handle
people click a link, they send money to a wallet address, and then I send the key to the email they provided. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's basically just cutting out the middleman there, especially if you're the one doing all the advertising for yourself. There's not really, I mean, how much, not how much money, but how many views do you think you got just from being on Steam with, like, not related to your YouTube channel?
It's actually not very much at all. I mean, they give you a lot of views, but a lot of them don't turn into sales.
Okay.
I've probably only gotten a couple $100 from being on Steam.
So, yeah.
Well, from Steam's promotion.
Right.
And then there's the people that were interested in my stuff and didn't want to buy it unless it was on Steam, which is probably maybe another 100 or so. And then the majority is probably people that would have bought it on itch, but they would prefer to get it on Steam. So there's a loss that comes from even allowing Steam. But overall, it hasn't been too much of a benefit. It allows you to reach larger markets, but fees.
No, definitely, especially if they're taking whatever, 20, 30, 40%, whatever it is, I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, and then on top of that, the $100 or whatever it is to post the game.
Yeah.
So you're already down. By the time you start it, you're already down. And then they're just still grubbing it out.
Well, actually, I forgot. With Super Potato Bro, I did turn it into something beneficial for me. I used it as an excuse to post about my game on the Python subreddit again. I got another couple thousand votes and a ton of sales on itch.io again. So I made over $100 from just that post. So I covered the fees with that post. So in the case of Super Potato Bro, doing that split release where I got to advertise it twice, right, made it worth it.
So you posted it prior to posting it on Steam. You basically made the money to post it on Steam. Is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's another way to do it as well. It's pretty smart.
That first batch of money also came from Reddit.
Yeah, so Reddit is your bank. Oh, so this is a question I have about using the cryptocurrency. So, a lot of people are fine with putting their credit card and like putting in Steam or using it for itch. Can they do like a credit card transaction with the Bitcoin, like whatever it is?
I mean, they would have to buy the cryptocurrency themselves, which is the downside, is that it's only really available for people that already have it, or it's kind of tedious for people to get into it. They have to learn some stuff. They have to, well, it depends on what they're using, but generally, they got to create their wallet. They got to set up their marketplace account, which if you're in the US, the only ones that are legal require you to give a lot of information.
Yeah.
So like your name, your address, and whatnot.
Like a picture of your ID sometimes. It's like,
because the government wants to track when you buy cryptocurrency.
Yeah. I mean, I understand why. It's like, they get they're kind of lost with their pants down. At least a couple years ago when they couldn't figure out what was going on.
Oh, actually, I think what is it? The FBI has a bounty on anyone that can figure out how to track transactions through Monero, which people use to hide transactions. That's the whole point of that cryptocurrency, is that it hides things.
Right.
And people doing illegal stuff typically use Monero.
Oh wow.
But
Yeah,
they got like a
600.
Right?
I heard about Monero. I think it was like from probably some ad on like some kind of thing on Facebook, maybe a Vice article or something. But yeah, they're saying that the FBI literally will pay you if you could figure out how to trace people's transactions.
It's like 600,000, I think.
That's crazy. You getting to work on that, dude?
No. If they did it properly, it shouldn't be traceable, and cryptography should be a one-way thing.
Yeah, I think I don't know much about it. I was a cryptologic linguist in the army, but it has nothing to do with cryptography and encrypting like information, more like languages. I don't know. It was a misnomer, dude.
Yeah.
So I mean I don't really have a lot of experience with like cryptocurrency that much, but it's pretty cool. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I've had my eyes on it for years. I think I wanted to buy $50 of Bitcoin in, I think, before 2017. But I didn't. At that point, I didn't want to go through the effort. And then, what was it? March this year, right after it crashed, I wanted to buy some like $50 of Bitcoin again. And I started looking at it, and I didn't want to give the marketplace my information. So I missed out on, what was it, 5-6x? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about, there's like Robinhood as well, which you're not owning that.
You don't
Bitcoin.
own it.
Yeah, you don't own the Bitcoin, but you just basically you get the cash from it.
You still got to sign up with your ID and whatnot.
Oh, well, yeah, I did that a while back. I don't know if it's still the same thing, but yeah, you don't own the crypto, but you still get the gains. So.
Yeah, well, also I don't think there are any fees on that. So if you don't like fees, there's that. But you only do that if you're not interested in owning your crypto, which I want to own it.
Yeah, if you want to spend the crypto, if you want to spend it and not just resell it, then yeah, that would be the.
Or just in general to own it, because I mean, Robinhood can do whatever they want whenever they want. They can ban you for whatever reason. What is it? Coinbase. People were storing their money in Coinbase, and there have been tons of people who've been banned from Coinbase and lost thousands of dollars.
And what was that? There was like this huge thing that happened with crypto years ago. I don't remember exactly what it was, but everyone started like losing thousands and thousands of dollars through, I think it was Coinbase. Maybe it was Ethereum or maybe it was Bitcoin, but something crazy happened. I can't.
I'm not aware of that really.
It was insane. It was I think maybe I had like $100 of Ethereum or something, but I'm always into these cryptocurrencies, like, and then I just can't commit to keeping them. I'm like, oh, this is never gonna go anywhere, and I just end up.
Yeah, I've got some money in it, and I'm planning on just leaving it long term because unless the governments ban it, I'm pretty sure it's going to go up long term, unless I pick the wrong ones. So the ones I've picked could go to zero. But
yeah, definitely.
There's huge potential for long term games.
I'm a Dogecoin memer. No, the worthless piece of trash it is.
Lots of inflation. I'm not used to talking this long.
You're good, dude. So, do you have any games you're working on right now?
Yeah, there's one I've been streaming development for. I've got 15 hours of streams on it. It essentially took the concept of my most recent game, and the idea is to dumb it down a bit so that it's not as extreme with the genre crosses, because my last game I released, Drawn Down Abyss, is platformer, bullet hell, roguelike card game. So like 4 genres. It works, but the first impression is a bit much for people. And you can tell that from the reviews. People are kind of surprised that it works, but it's also very weird.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like a big entry barrier. And do you have a tutorial level that kind of teaches everyone everything?
Hold on, sorry, my computer went to sleep. A tutorial so for the game I released.
Yeah, the one that's complicated.
I think there's a tutorial built in when you play the game for the first time. I don't remember what triggers it. I think there are some other things that can trigger the tutorial. I don't remember what it is because I was just playing it a couple days ago and I noticed the tutorial popped up. I don't remember. Yeah, I have no clue what the conditions are for showing the tutorial, but basically, when you're playing the game, it'll like tell you a couple of things first time you play it or something like that. It always happens the first time you play it, at least. It'll tell you like collect the cards and it tells you some other stuff, and I don't even remember. I think it tells you what the buttons are and stuff like that. But I mean, the game itself, I think it's fairly intuitive. You might be a little bit confused at first. I think I didn't handhold enough because what in the game the objective is to just survive for a certain amount of time, and then you can go down to the next floor when the floor opens up, and you can just drop down. So for that first minute or whatever, where you're waiting for the time to pass, the player might be confused as to what they're supposed to do. But then after that, it makes sense. You're told to collect the cards and whatnot, and I think it tells you how to play them and whatnot. So,
that's. I mean, I feel like that's a. You can't really play the game for them at the same time. So I mean,
I think it was just a mistake to assume that they would not be confused during. Well, actually, no. I think I knew they would be confused during that first minute. I just didn't think it would be a very big deal. But now that I'm looking back on it, it's not a good idea to have that first experience, to have the player very confused for that first experience, even if it's going to resolve itself in a minute.
Right. I mean, it only takes 30 seconds to close the game. Whatever. I mean, they could do it in 1 second, but
just hit escape.
Yeah, exactly. So, what was I going to say? I was going to say something about. Dang, I just lost my train of thought right there. But
I do that a lot.
Me too. It's like I have the biggest thought in the world. Oh yeah. So how often do you go back and update your games on Steam?
Okay, I updated Super Potato Bro with a new world. I was considering updating Drawn Down Abyss, but I decided not to because there wasn't enough interest, and I wanted to work on other stuff. But generally, I think if there's interest or if I'm just interested in the project, I'll update it. That's what happened with Lollipop Ninja, which was it's not on Steam. It was one of my Game Jam games. I updated it because I thought it was cool. People were also speedrunning it. So, yeah.
No, that's cool. So, oh man, it happened again. All right. I'm like, I was just so into what you were saying. I couldn't keep up, but so Lollipop. So like when you go back and you update it, do you fix glitches or do you like literally just add DLC?
Generally, there's not really glitches to fix. I fairly extensively playtest my games for fun, and I catch most things. I think working by yourself on something severely reduces the amount of bugs that pop up. Because when you're working with other people, someone might change something that breaks something else, and they're unaware of it. Whereas when I'm working on something by myself, I know how everything's connected, and when I change something, I know what it affects, so I can know what to test. And also, since I made the entire thing, I have a good sense of what I can do to very quickly test the game, just to test the basic functionality.
And so when you start a game with Pygame, like I guess would you say in the console, or I don't know how it starts. Is it an engine? Would you consider it an engine or just a library?
No, it's very much a graphics library. Well, they've got other stuff. So they've got something for playing sounds and music. They've got the basic interface stuff, so you can press keys and whatnot. But other than that, it's pretty much show this image at this location, or resize this image, rotate this image, stuff like that. So there's not a whole lot of higher level stuff. So they don't give you physics. They don't. They actually do give you entity management, I think, to some extent, but I don't use it. So I don't know what extent that goes to. Right. I've never used it. Which is funny because I make all these tutorials and I haven't even used that part of the library. And actually, I think most tutorials do use it. I just don't.
Well, if you ever want to make a tutorial on it, that'd be a good time to learn it. I feel like when I make tutorials on making games and everything, that's like when I'm really cementing the knowledge into my brain. So like maybe I've practiced a couple times, but as soon as I make a tutorial, like it's stuff that I really don't forget after that. So if you never want to learn it,
I mean that's kind of how it goes with some of the tutorials I make. It's not really about Pygame. It's since Pygame is a graphics library and they don't have all that built-in functionality, I'm not making tutorials about how to use Pygame's functionality to do something, really. Well, it is to use Pygame functionality, but it's not like Pygame has a particle system. Here's how you use the particle system. That's what it would be if you were using Unity or something, I would assume. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Whereas with Pygame, I show you how to build a particle system from the ground up, and there are several people that watch my tutorials where they're not even using Pygame. They just convert that knowledge into other languages and graphics libraries so they can make it themselves in whatever they're using.
Right, so you're kind of engine building in a way.
In a sense, yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. Have you?
And the next thing with Python, it's very well, it's kind of pseudocode, so pretty much anyone can read it and understand what's going on.
No, definitely. That's like the benefit to like people starting out programming with Python. I mean, you get just that kind of ease. It's like just English. It's like just reading English in a way. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to implement networking in any of your games?
Yes. I haven't released. Wait, no, actually, there is one I released. Don't look at that. I did it very poorly. But the ones where I've done it properly, I've not released anything. I was working on an MMO-ish type thing. Dropped that. I got through the hard parts, and I was like, I don't want to do all this content creation, like where you're drawing all the assets and making the worlds. So I dropped it. So I had like a base system for the players, the movement, the inventories, the combat, the physics and whatnot, and I just dropped it because I didn't want to make the worlds and everything.
Yeah, you just don't have the art assets. I mean, that takes a lot of time and a lot of creativity that some people just, like me, I'm very bad at the creative part. So like, I try to make all the functionality, but then I'm just afraid that I'll just toss it out because like, what, I got to make like 10 different characters, and then I like 3D. So like I end up having to make some weird freaks in Blender, and I just throw them out too.
Well, the more you do it, the better you'll get. So that's how like been my approach. The reason I dropped that project was not because I was directly not interested in making that many assets. It was just I didn't want to put that much time towards that project. I wanted to work on other stuff. So like I would redirect that time towards other projects, and I would still be making assets and whatnot. So it wasn't like I didn't want to do the assets.
Yeah.
It's just a large task I didn't want to do specifically on that project.
So what's your favorite kind of game to make? Is it platformers or?
I'm known for making platformers, but I think it's fair to say that my preference is actually bullet hells. Okay, not traditional bullet hells. It would be bullet hell lights, I would assume. I don't know if that's even a term, but essentially things with lots of projectiles. So the nice thing about projectiles is you get a lot of scalable difficulty, and you don't have to put in hardly any work into assets and whatnot. So it makes the game a lot more entertaining for very little effort.
No, that's cool. That's pretty nice, dude. So with collisions, this is what I have a question about, is because like, how do you program and like collisions in something like Pygame?
Well, actually, I have tutorials on this, but the basic idea is well, obviously I have to do it from the ground up, but you take the position of your tile or all the tiles you want to collide with, and your entities that you're moving, and you also want to know how much you're moving it and whatnot, and you essentially just consider one axis at a time. You'll move on the x-axis and the y-axis, and you know if you hit a tile and you're moving on the x-axis, you can tell which part of the tile the player should be moved to for the collision. So if you go inside a tile, approaching, going right, because you're going plus X or something, to set the right side of the player to the left side of the tile. Whereas if you do both at once, you don't know where to put the player. But that applies for 3-dimensional physics as well. So I can easily up that to 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, 5 dimensions. So yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So that's kind of complicated. So do you say so you basically have to cache the position of and the width and the kind of the position and dimensions of every object that you kind of spawn or pick, like?
Well, yeah, you gotta anything you want to do collisions with. Yeah, you gotta know the size and position, and you have to manage all that stuff yourself.
That sounds like so much work. That's crazy. I feel like my brain wouldn't function.
I prefer working on that level because my brain doesn't function well when I have to deal with all the abstraction that comes with engines.
Yeah, I can see that as well.
There's when I use Godot, I kind of hacked around their built-in systems and made my own thing in Godot, which not ideal, but I didn't have a whole lot of time, so yeah. I rushed it and made my own. I made my own, tile system, and I made my own tile system and map system within Godot instead of using their own because I couldn't get it to do what I wanted it to do.
Yeah,
and I didn't want to spend more time on trying to figure out how to get it to do what I wanted to do.
That is a problem sometimes, is you find like you have some kind of a good idea, and it's great that you can actually figure out a way to get around it, because a lot of people, they get stuck and then they just, like, if there's not a tutorial for it, what do they just move on? And I think the better way to do it is literally just to problem solve. And what I find myself doing is if I can't get something working, I have to sit there until I get it to do what I want, or it's way too late at night and I have to go to sleep. Like, there's only two options there.
So sometimes there are those days where I try to get something to do what I want, and I actually typically don't have that issue with Pygame too much anymore. It's usually like learning something, and I think this has been the case with Unity. Like years ago, I tried to do something, get it to do what I want, and I was doing some stuff with OpenGL, and I hate that feeling when I go to bed and I didn't get it to do what I wanted it to do.
It's like that just nags at you.
Yeah.
So,
and it essentially ruins your day.
No, definitely. I have nightmares about. No, I don't. But I mean, basically, it's pretty bad. I don't want to go to sleep at that points like that. And if I have something to do in the morning, it's really affects that. So, yeah. Do you have I guess goals beyond, like, I guess game dev goals beyond like indie developing, or do you really enjoy just doing your?
I'm not really interested in working for a game dev company because they don't treat their employees well. I also just in general don't like sharing the creative process with other people. I prefer to have complete control over my games. So I'm kind of stuck being indie. I do take freelancing jobs, like small in the scope of who's making it. Small freelancing jobs for game development, where I do have a decent amount of creative control. But in terms of long-term game development and what I want to do, I don't think I would accept anything other than solo. Or maybe I could run into someone where I really like their work or something, and it would probably be a music producer or something like that.
Yeah.
And I might work with them or something like that. But I'm working on learning that myself right now, so if I get happy with that, I don't see any reason to ever really work with people on games.
Right. If you're good at, basically, if you can make the art, if you can make the music, you can make the sound.
Yeah, that's my goal.
What do you need? What do you need other people for?
I mean, music. The thing about music is that it's pretty cheap to pay someone to do it, whereas the art, you're spending tons of money because there's so much time that goes into that. And these artists go for, if they're decent, usually they'll go for $15 an hour or more. And I don't want to pay that. And that's why I started learning right off the bat how to draw. And I actually have not had very much progress, in my opinion, over the last 7 years. But I'm still happy I've made progress, and I'm happy with the progress I've made. But I feel like I could be better.
No, yeah, and there's always room to improve. But I'm sure if you look back at what you were doing when you were 13 or 14 and compared to now, I'm sure there's a huge difference in what's happened, dude.
Yeah. But overall, in terms of my in my long-term goals, my plan is to work in the computer science industry, and just do game dev and whatever I'm doing right now on the side, and then maybe transition into doing whatever I'm doing right now on the side into that being my full-time job, if it pays enough. I mean, right now I get an average of, I think, I'll get $17 an hour from YouTube. I think an average of 20 to 23 from game dev, and 25-ish from free. No, it's above 25. 25 is the minimum for freelancing, and then take some other jobs that are higher. But
so you're pretty well off right now. Like you want more and more and more.
Well, okay, so it's not the numbers themselves that are the issue. The hourly wage is great. The issue is I can't scale that into more hours very easily, and that's why I can't do it full time.
Especially freelancing, right? It's kind of come as it comes.
Well, I could probably. I'm not sure if I could get those rates if I went onto Upwork or something, but YouTube's not very scalable. Like if I made 10 times more videos, I'm not going to get 10 times more views. And then game dev, if I make 10 games, the releases start conflicting with each other and I don't get as much in sales. So yeah, there's that concern. So yeah, my long-term goals are to just get into the computer science industry. Well, I'm already in it, but do that and then do what I'm doing now and hopefully ease over.
So what kind of stuff are you planning to do, like in computer, like AI or?
Okay, so since you can learn pretty much anything yourself, I'm going to the stuff I'm focusing on at university is robotics, since that's expensive to get into yourself.
That's cool.
But I'm already in aerospace, like the space part of aerospace, but I like that industry so far. I might stay in it. Who knows? I might jump over. I also do like web development. I don't care too much when I'm in. I think there's some areas that I don't want to be in, but generally I have a good time whatever I'm working on.
No, yeah, robotics is actually a really good choice because it's expensive. It is expensive. Like you can write the program, but if you don't have the machinery or, I mean, so I was thinking about making a robot, and literally what it would take is I would have to figure out how to work with metal, dude. Like what grind like metal down to like little perfect shapes and have the perfect size holes. And I'm sure there's YouTube tutorials, but I don't think I have the tools for that.
Yeah, equipment's very expensive. I haven't even started on it yet. It's just my university requires that we take a certain amount of higher level computer science courses, and they're usually under specific fields. And so I haven't even gotten to those classes yet. But yeah, I'm planning on doing them in robotics.
Yeah, that's a good choice, dude. Have you had any interest in making like a 3D game?
Well, yeah, I really like VR. I play it pretty much, well, not quite every day, but multiple times a week. I've racked up well over 1,000 hours at this point in VR. I bought it in end of 2018, and racked up over 1,000 hours. And I kind of want to make my own games for VR. I haven't really gotten around to it yet, but my plan is to use Godot. That's why I learned it for that game jam, is I wanted to get a bit used to it, and then I'm gonna use it to make VR games at some point in the future. But so I'm not really interested in just raw 3D. If I do 3D, I'm doing VR.
No, that's really cool. I just got the Oculus Quest 2 or whatever that is.
2? Yeah, you gotta have a Facebook account for that.
yeah, I do. I've had one since I was there when I was like, Facebook's never gonna be anything. I just got a MySpace account, guys. Come on. All of a sudden, everyone's moving to Facebook, dude. I'm always chasing. I had to get it. But they're spying on me. I know. They're in my phone when I'm not even on Facebook. They're listening to what I want. They know when you poop. Exactly. It's so nerve-wracking. But yeah, I saw your VR channel where you play Beat Saber. Is that how Beat Saber looks, or is that like mods that you've added to it?
I have. Okay. I think the only mod that you can really. Well, there's 2 mods that are very noticeable on that channel. There's one where I've got custom sabers, And funny enough, they're skis, but I like the shape of them, so I use them.
They look like
and
cool swords. I didn't even notice that they were skis. I was like,
Um, and then the other mod I've got is just actually no, I forgot. Custom songs don't require a mod, so never. It used to be that you need a mod for custom songs, but nowadays you don't. Although I do have a mod for downloading them, but even then I don't have to use that because I created my own tool that gets them for me. So that's not even a mod itself. It's an external application. But yeah, it is kind of what Beat Saber looks like. That's not how people normally play it. Normally people play the maps that come with the game. But yeah.
oh, that's cool. So what VR headset do you use?
I've got an original Oculus Rift CV1. So the one that was it 2016, 2017. I got it for $350. For a little bit, what was it? Was it Christmas this year or Christmas last year? I don't even remember. It was going for like $900 on Amazon used.
Oh,
so
wow.
I could have sold it and gotten a $600 gain because the demand was so high for this thing. The controllers are built extremely well, and I still think they're the best controllers in the industry. Because like the index controllers for the Valve, well, they're the Knuckles controllers, I think. The controllers for the Valve Index, they're big, they're clunky, they break a lot. Like the joysticks will break. And then all of the other ones, they use what is it? Built? I forget what they call it. Inside out tracking, where the cameras are on the headset, so it like doesn't track behind your back and whatnot. So it also just in general doesn't track as well since all the cameras are kind of coming from one point. The original Oculus Rift has sensor-based tracking where you place sensors around the room, and it's significantly better.
Oh,
so
wow.
the controllers are sturdy. They're people that have severely trashed it up, like throwing it against walls and whatnot, and works perfectly fine. And the tracking's very good. The shape's very good. The shape is the main reason I don't want to get the Valve Index. But yeah, overall, very good controllers. The headset's pretty decent as well, at least for the time. The resolution's pretty trash nowadays, but considering I played Beat Saber, it's still my preference. I'm hoping something comes out that has good controllers and good tracking, but also updated display. But it's not really an option right now. So I'm stuck with what I've got.
Yeah, and you don't like it. I've never. I feel like maybe I've used a HTC Vive or something in like the mall, but I've never really used one of those headsets that keep you wired in and stuff like that. Is that an issue when it comes to stuff?
Wait, the Vive actually they do have some sort of module or something to do it wirelessly, but the Vive by default is wired. But it doesn't bother me. I think it bothers other people more than it bothers me. I just feel a cable on my back. It's not a huge deal. I don't really trip over it or anything. Yeah. The main issue is just that the cable that comes with the headset is a bit short, and I have to stand pretty close to my computer. But yeah, generally it's not too much of an issue. I stand in the same place usually. I pretty much only crouch and maybe turn. I don't even turn all the way around to use snap turn in most games. Yeah.
So, yeah, man. It's been an awesome conversation. It was nice to meet you, dude.
Nice to meet you.
Do you have anything that you want to promote right now? Any games or anything?
Well, I haven't actually released a game to sell since 2019, I think it was that I released Drawn Down Abyss. It was the October, I think, or was it September? I don't remember. But I'm not super happy with the games I'm selling right now since they're kind of outdated. So I don't really want to promote that too much. But yeah, my YouTube channel, if you're interested in that stuff, I do just a lot of game development or computer science related content. Well, right now it's mostly game development, but I do plan on branching out at some point. But yeah, that's just DaFluffyPotato. You can Google that. It's not hard to find.
Yeah, and it's on the screen here too. YouTube.com/DaFluffyPotato works. It goes to his YouTube. It's in the description below as well. Thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been a pleasure.
It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you.